Princess Ivienne stood on the grand marble balcony, her pale blue gown brushing the stone floor like a whisper. Below her, the landing platform shone under the twin suns of Aurelia, and strange shapes moved across its surface. Sleek human starships, polished to mirror brightness, descended with graceful hums, stirring a breeze that lifted her hair. Her heart beat faster in her chest as she watched human peacekeepers step onto her world for the first time in a century. Each soldier wore a uniform of deep navy and silver trim. Their helmets gleamed under the afternoon light, and their faces held both confidence and caution. Evienne studied them with wide eyes. She had learned of human valor in stories and ancient records, but seeing them here brought a new stir of hope and fear. Could these humans truly come in peace? Or did their arrival hide darker designs? Among them, one figure caught her attention. He moved with calm purpose, scanning the palace towers and banners as though trying to read the silent language of Aurelia. His posture was straight, but his eyes held softness, a gentle strength that made Evianne's breath catch. She had never felt such a pull toward a human before. Below, the human commander stepped forward to address her. His voice carried easily across the platform. "Princess Ivienne," he said, bowing respectfully. "On behalf of the United Earth Forces, I bring greetings and friendship." His words were clear and warm, echoing in Ivienne's ears like a promise. She dipped her head and returned the salute. "Welcome to Aurelia," she replied, her voice steady, despite the fluttering in her chest. "Your peace is long awaited." She watched as the soldiers around him relaxed, their stiff shoulders easing. The tension in the air shifted into quiet excitement. Elias Reed stood a few paces behind his commander. He studied the princess with careful eyes, noting the soft curve of her cheekbones and the steady grace in her stance. To him, she seemed both regal and fragile, like a rare flower grown in a hidden garden. He wondered what secrets lay behind her calm gaze. Ivienne stepped forward, gesturing toward the palace gardens below. "Please, come with me. I will show you the heart of our world." Her voice carried a welcoming warmth that soothed the strangers around her. Elias followed, his boots clicking softly on the marble floor. As they walked through arches carved with ancient symbols, Ivienne pointed out fountains that glittered with rainbow lights and trees whose leaves whispered in the wind. Elias listened with genuine interest. He knelt beside a glowing flower that hummed faintly, and when Evian watched him with curiosity, his lips curved into a gentle smile. "You have many wonders here," he said. "I've never seen anything like it." His words were simple, but Evian felt their weight as though they were precious gems. She realized how little she knew of humans, yet here, before her eyes, stood a man who saw beauty in her world and spoke with kindness. A tense hush fell suddenly when palace guards signaled a possible security breach. Both Evian and Elias paused, their eyes meeting in a moment of shared concern. But within minutes, the threat proved to be a misunderstanding, a small technical glitch that left only embarrassment in its wake. No harm had come to either side. Evian breathed out a shaky laugh. "I am sorry for the alarm," she said softly. Elias offered his hand to her, steady and reassuring. "No need to apologize," he told her. "We all make mistakes." When their fingers brushed, Evian felt warmth spread through her veins. Later, as the sun dipped low, Evian stood side by side on the balcony once more. The sky blazed with violet and gold, and below them, the peacekeepers settled into camp with curious excitement. Evian felt a strange mixture of relief and longing. The humans had come with open hands, and among them was someone who felt like home in that moment. Evian did not yet know the full truth of Elias's past, but she sensed that this meeting was more than chance.
As the twin suns set together,
She pressed her hand to her heart, promising herself that she would learn everything about the brave soldier on her world, and that her own heart would guide her to the answer. Princess Ivienne walked through the palace gates into the lush gardens, her pale blue gown swaying behind her like a gentle wave. The air was warm and filled with the scent of moonflowers, whose petals glowed softly under hidden lights. She guided the human peacekeepers along winding paths of marble and crystal. Elias Reed marched beside her, his helmet tucked under one arm so she could see his thoughtful face. He listened as Evienne described the history of each fountain and grove, and she felt a curious thrill at how he watched every detail with genuine awe. Under an arch of flowering vines, Evienne paused. She bowed her head gracefully, and Elias returned her gesture with perfect courtesy. Around them, the other soldiers watched in respectful silence, marveling at the princess's quiet dignity. Evienne looked up, meeting Elias's warm brown eyes. For a moment, they held each other's gazes. She felt a gentle pulse of something she could not name, like the first note of a sweet melody. Elias felt it too, a strange, hopeful stirring that made his chest tighten. They continued deeper into the gardens, where crystal streams wound between tall trees whose leaves whispered in the evening breeze. Evienne pointed to a water lily floating on the surface, its center shimmering like a tiny sun. "This flower only blooms when the heart is pure," she said softly. Elias knelt to examine it closely, careful not to disturb its fragile beauty. "It is the most beautiful I have ever seen," he replied. His simple words sent a warm glow through Evianne's heart, and she realized that kindness could feel as bright as a star. As they walked on, Elias shared stories of his homeworld. He spoke of wide oceans that reflected the sky, of tall forests where birds sang at dawn, and of bustling cities filled with laughter. Evienne listened, imagining each place in her mind. She told him about Aurelia's sapphire lakes and the festivals, held under the twin moons, of music that rose like a gentle wind, and of dances that told stories older than time. Their voices rose and fell in a soft rhythm, like two instruments learning to play a duet. A sudden breeze stirred the leaves overhead, making silver petals drift down around them like gentle rain. Evienne laughed, reaching out to catch a petal. On her fingertip, Elias watched her with a warm smile, his uniform catching the soft glow of the lamps hidden among the branches. In that moment, the world felt quiet and perfect. Evienne felt as though she had known him her whole life, and Elias felt as though he had finally found a missing piece of himself. Neither spoke, but their shared silence was full of meaning, at the heart of the garden. They came to a circular pavilion where a pool of water mirrored the sky. Evienne stepped onto the smooth platform and motioned for Elias to join her. He stood beside her, their shoulders almost touching, and they watched the reflections of stars that were not yet visible above. Evienne dared to speak the thought in her mind, her voice barely above a whisper. "You feel familiar, as if you belong here." Elias turned to her, surprise and warmth in his expression. He reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I feel the same," he said. As they left the pavilion, the other soldiers trailed behind, talking in low voices about Aurelian wonders. Evienne and Elias walked side by side, their steps in perfect harmony. Each felt hope blooming like a flower in their hearts. They did not yet know the full reason for their connection, but in that garden of moonlit petals, they both sensed that destiny was guiding them toward something beautiful and true. Princess Evienne sat in her private chamber as the morning sun painted soft gold across the polished floors. Servants moved quietly, but she could feel a restless buzz in the air. Whispers of sabotage had reached her ears. Someone wanted to undermine the peace treaty with Earth. Her stomach knotted at the thought. For weeks she had felt hope bloom in her heart, and now that hope trembled on the edge of fear. She pressed her hand to her chest, steadying her breath, and vowed to protect her people without allowing darkness to shadow their new friendship. Elias. Reed stood at attention in the throne room when Evienne summoned him. His broad shoulders and calm gaze gave her courage. "Princess," he said, bowing his head. "What troubles you?" She told him of the rumored strange messages sent to secure channels, odd tools found near the palace walls, and unexplained power surges in the communication towers. His face remained steady, and Evienne felt a spark of relief. She knew his courage was not loud or brash, but strong and sure. "Allow me to help," he offered. "Together, we will find the truth." That evening, under a pale violet sky, Evienne and Elias walked side by side toward the tallest tower on the palace grounds. Guards bowed respectfully as the princess passed, and Elias nodded to each soldier. The tower's spiral path wound upward. Around a core of glowing crystal, they climbed. Flickering lamps cast dancing shadows on their faces. Iviene's heart pounded, but Elias reached out once, brushing her hand with his fingertips. His touch whispered calm to her soul. She squeezed his hand back, feeling his steady support. At the top, the communication hub hummed with soft energy. Console lights blinked in orderly patterns until EVA noticed a small panel loose at the base. "Look there," she murmured. Elias knelt and carefully pried it open. Inside, he found a tiny device blinking red. "This was not built here," he said, voice low. Vivienne bent close, her dark hair falling like a curtain around her face. She traced the runes etched on the metal, recognizing the language of a fringe faction known for old grudges. Her heart trembled as she realized how close they had come to real danger. Working together. Vivienne decoded the device's last message. It was a threat masked as a warning. "Stop the treaty, or watch your world burn." Elias's jaw tightened. But he stayed calm. "We can stop this," he said softly. Vivienne nodded, feeling his confidence flow into her. She spoke the words to erase the message, then altered the sequence so that the device would send an alert if anyone tried to use it again. Her mind raced with both relief and sorrow, relief that she had saved her people. Sorrow that anyone had planned harm at all. Just as they secured the device, a guard burst in, breathless. He held another tool, a strange, jagged piece of metal. Engraved with the same runes, found near the gardens, he panted. Yvonne took it in her hand, turning it over like a strange flower. Its edges were sharp but delicate, a cruel mismatch. "This was meant to cut power lines," she said, voice trembling. Elias pressed a reassuring hand to her back. Together, they sealed the item in a protective case and arranged for it to be studied by Aurelian engineers. A weapon. Their commitment to peace was stronger than any blade. When the guard left, Vivienne turned to Elias. The tower lights glowed softly around them, bathing his face in gentle warmth. "You were brave," she said, voice thick with emotion. Elias met her gaze with calm strength. "I only did what was right," he replied. Yvonne felt tears prick her eyes, not of sadness, but of gratitude and admiration. She had faced fear and found courage in his steady calm. He had faced danger and found mercy in her clear mind. As they descended the tower steps together, the twin moons rose behind them, casting pale light across the palace grounds. Vivienne and Elias walked in silence, their shoulders brushing. Neither spoke, but their hearts beat in quiet harmony. They had uncovered shadows of conflict and stood together without violence. In that gentle hour, Vivienne knew their bond was deeper than alliance. It was a true meeting of hearts. And in their shared silence, hope bloomed brighter than ever before. Princess Vivienne entered the grand archive hall before dawn. Its tall shelves lined with glowing holoreels that whispered with ancient voices. The air smelled of old paper and warm light. She moved in silence, her pale blue gown trailing softly. Behind her, no servant stirred. The archive's doors were sealed at this hour. Vivienne felt a hush wrap around her, as though the past itself waited for her footsteps. At the far end of the hall, a single hollow projector stood on a marble pedestal. It was old, its brass edges worn smooth by centuries of use. Vivienne brushed a fingertip along its frame, remembering how as a child she had pressed buttons here and watched images dance to life. Now she knelt before it, her heart fluttering with hope. She searched for a specific real one she had glimpsed years ago, but never dared watch again. Her fingers trembled as she lifted the reel from its slot. The label read in faint script, "Memories of Vivienne." She placed it in the projector and pressed the gleaming crystal button. A soft hum filled the room. Shapes flickered in the air before a blurry at first, then sharpening into color. Evian's breath caught as she saw herself, a small girl in a white tunic, laughing beside a river under twin moons. Then a boy stepped into view, holding a tiny wooden starship model. His hair was dark and curly, his eyes bright with mischief. He waved at the camera, his grin wide and genuine. Vivienne's own laughter echoed as she reached for the toy in his hands. They chased each other along the riverbank, splashing water that glinted like diamonds. The innocent world there were no crowns, no treaties, only to children playing under the sky. Evian's throat tightened. She leaned closer, noticing how the boy's face matched the calm kindness she had seen in Captain Elias Reed. The shape of his jaw, the gentle curve of his smile, it was him. But that boy had lived on Earth, and Elias had never mentioned his childhood here. The reel continued, showing them running through flowering fields, building castles of stone, and sharing secrets in whispered voices. They spoke of dreams to explore the stars and find new friends across the galaxy.
Ow.
Tears filled Evian's eyes as she watched the final scene. The children sat on a log, gazing at a handcrafted telescope. The boy pointed to a shooting star, and the girl whispered, "When we grow up, I want to show it to you again." He nodded, his hand brushing hers in a promise. Then the image faded to black, the hum of the projector settling into silence. Evian rose, her legs weak, but her heart pounding with joy and disbelief. She pressed her palm to her mouth, trying to still the rush of emotion. Childhood memories were sacred, locked away from royal duties and public eyes. Yet here they were, laid bare before her. She understood then why Elias had seemed to fit so naturally beside her, why his calm strength felt like home. Turning, she hurried from the archive, reel in hand. The corridors glowed softly as morning light crept through stained glass windows. Servants had not yet arrived, and the palace was still and quiet. Evian's mind raced with questions. Had Elias come to forget these memories? Why had he never spoken of them? Most importantly, how would he feel when he learned the truth? She found Elias waiting near the rose courtyard, where moonlit blossoms still glowed pale in the morning haze. His armor caught the first light, and he held a cup of warming tea. He looked up, surprise in his eyes when he saw the reel in her hand and the tears on her cheeks. Evian took a steadying breath. "I watched this," she said, her voice soft but clear. "It is our past. It was you, and it was me." She opened her hand to show him the holoreel. His expression shifted from confusion to wonder as he took it, his fingers brushing hers. Evian felt a spark of something ancient and precious pass. Between them, together, they would unlock these echoes of the past and see where they led. In that quiet morning light, childhood friends became more than memories. They became destiny, want. And as Evian met Ilias's gaze, she felt the promise of their reunion bloom brighter than any star. Princess Evian led Elias through a quiet corridor toward the moonlit rose garden. Her pale gown brushed softly against the floor, and Elias followed close behind, his armor's silver edges catching the light like gentle stars. Each step felt heavy with promise and fear. Evian clutched the holoreel in her hand, its small casing warm from her grip. She had rehearsed her words in her mind 1,000 times, but now her heart pounded in her chest like a drum. They reached a clearing, where pale roses glowed under hidden lamps. The air smelled of sweet petals, and a soft breeze rustled the leaves overhead. Evian stopped beside a marble bench and turned to Elias, her dark hair falling over one shoulder. "Elias," she began, her voice steady despite the flutter in her throat. "I watched our memories today." She held out the holoreel, her pale fingers trembling. "This is you and me when we were children." Elias took the reel from her hand and held it against his chest as though it were fragile glass, his brow furrowed in confusion and wonder. I don't understand," he whispered. His deep voice sounded small in the moonlit garden. Evian stepped closer, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Watch this," she said, pointing to the projector on a low pedestal beside the bench. She had arranged it here in secret, away from prying eyes. Elias placed the holoreel into the projector and pressed the crystal button. A soft hum filled the air, and flickering images appeared above their heads. The rose petals seemed to sway with the moving shapes. He saw himself as a boy, laughing beneath twin moons, chasing Evian along a riverbank. He saw her small hand reach for his wooden starship model. Their voices, young and bright, spoke of dreams and adventures. Elias's breath caught, and his eyes widened as each scene unfolded. Evian watched him, her heart aching with hope and fear. She saw his shoulders slump and tears glisten in his eyes. The projector showed them building castles of stone, dancing under starlight and sharing whispered secrets. At the final scene, the children sat side by side, their faces lit by the glow of the handmade telescope. The boy pointed to the sky and said, "One day, we will meet again and travel among the stars." The girl nodded, her dark hair drifting in the gentle breeze. When the image faded, silence settled between them like a soft blanket. Elias reached out, lifting Evian's hand to his lips. He pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles, as if he could seal the memory with his touch. "Princess," he said, voice trembling, "I remember now." His words spilled like a confession. Evian felt her breath catch as relief and joy washed through her. "You do?" she whispered. Elias nodded, tears rolling down his cheeks. "I remember everything." Evian sank to the bench, and Elias pulled her into his arms. They held each other under the moonlit sky, their hearts beating in gentle harmony. She felt his warmth and strength surround her, and he felt her steady. Calm, steady, his own racing thoughts. In that embrace, they were not princess and soldier, but two children reunited after years apart. The world around them disappeared, leaving only their shared past and the promise of tomorrow. After a long moment, Evian pulled back and met his gaze. The roses glowed softly behind them. "I have so many questions," she said, voice soft and tender. Elias smiled through his tears. "And I have the answers," he replied. He reached into his pocket and produced a small locket that Evian recognized from her childhood, a gift he had given her on the day they parted. She opened it to find a miniature starship design inside. "I kept this all these years," Elias said. "It led me back to you." Under the pale moonlight, they sat together on the marble bench, sharing memories and promises. Their reunion felt like the first gentle note of a song that had waited long to be sung. In that rose garden, Evian and Elias discovered not only their past, but a future built on hope, trust, and a friendship that had endured across worlds and years. Princess Evian awoke before dawn, the pale light of Aurelia's twin moons filtering through her window. She dressed quickly in a flowing gown of soft silver, her mind racing with plans. Elias Reed waited in the hallway, his uniform crisp and his eyes calm. He handed her a sealed datapad. "The engineers decrypted another message," he said softly. "They plan to disable the city's power grid tonight." Evian nodded, her heart steady with resolve. They met in the council chamber, where human officers and Aurelian advisors stood in tense silence. Evian stepped forward, her presence gentle but firm. "We will protect our people without firing a single shot," she said. Words rang clear in the high-ceilinged room. Elias took her side, placing a hand over hers in a quiet show of unity. Together, they laid out their plan. First, they would reroute the city's energy through emergency conduits hidden beneath the streets. Aurelian engineers and human technicians worked side by side, adjusting valves and rewiring circuits. Evian moved among them, offering words of encouragement. Elias knelt beside a young soldier struggling with a stubborn connector. He showed her the correct alignment, and she beamed with pride. The two watched as blue sparks of power flowed safely through the new lines. Next, Evian and Elias rode in a hover car to the main control hub. The streets were empty, lit only by lanterns that cast long shadows. Citizens peered from their windows, hope shining in their eyes as they saw their princess and the human captain working together. Aurelian guards flanked the vehicle, their spears resting unused. The convoy moved smoothly through silent avenues. At the control hub, Elias accessed the security feed, while Evian entered override codes into the main console. They spoke little, but their teamwork was seamless. Elise's hands flew over the controls to isolate the sabotage devices, while Evian's clear voice guided the system to focus on safe power distribution. When alarms blared and red lights flashed, neither panicked. Instead, they exchanged a look of mutual confidence that spoke louder than any words. Outside, saboteurs tried to trigger their devices. They watched in frustration as the control hub sent back error messages. Their plan to throw the city into darkness failed again and again. Vivienne and Elias had anticipated every move. With each failed attempt, the saboteurs' resolve crumbled. They fled into the night, their shadows swallowed by the empty streets. Back in the council chamber, cheers rose as the power grid hummed steadily. Lights bloomed across the city like stars reborn. Citizens poured into the streets, celebrating the safety of their homes. They chanted Vivienne's name and saluted Captain Reed. Flowers rained down from balconies. Vivienne felt warmth flood her chest as she stood beside Elias. He bowed to the crowd. With Rund, I'll be seed by ride. I don't read odd. I'm just imbibe read I'm right on well I am out oh I'd bite I'm a word oh I'm bum some I'm spa I'm top I'm a night to sa Vivienne and Elias returned to the rose garden where they had shared their childhood. Memories. The moonlit blooms swayed in a gentle breeze. They sat on the marble bench, tired but unbroken. Vivienne reached for Elias's hand. We saved our world together, she said quietly. Elias squeezed her fingers. Together. Echoed, their eyes met, and neither needed more words. In the soft glow of moonlight, they promised each other to protect this new peace. Their hearts glowed with hope, shining brighter than any star in the sky. They were no longer just a princess and a soldier. They were partners whose bond had grown from childhood friendship to steadfast unity. And as the twin moons sailed overhead, Vivienne and Elias looked forward to tomorrow, sure that together they could meet any challenge with courage and compassion. Princess Vivienne awoke at dawn, the first rays of sunlight warming her cheeks through the tall windows. Today was the day of the peace celebration, a festival she had dreamed about since her childhood. She fastened a simple white dress at her shoulders, its silver embroidery catching the light like distant stars. Elias Reed stood in the doorway, dressed in his uniform but without his helmet. His calm smile gave her courage. They walked hand in hand through the palace halls, servants bowing respectfully as they passed. Vivienne's heart fluttered with excitement. The great plaza outside was already filled with citizens of both worlds, Aurelians in flowing robes. Humans in their uniforms all gathered together in one crowd. Banners of blue and gold waved in the gentle breeze, and music drifted through the air like a warm song. As they stepped onto the dais, applause rose like a wave. Vivienne lifted her hand in greeting, and Elias bowed. She took a breath and spoke. Clearly, today we stand together, not as two worlds, but as one people, she said. Her voice rang out over the plaza. We share stories, dreams, and hope. Elias stood beside her, his steady presence a quiet promise of solidarity. They looked out at the crowd, their eyes shining with pride. After her speech, Vivienne led Elias down to meet the children gathered near the fountains. A young Aurelian girl pressed a bright flower into the princess's hand. Vivienne knelt and smiled warmly, tucking the bloom behind her ear. Elias handed a small flag to a human boy who saluted shyly. The children laughed and ran together, chasing petals that floated on the breeze. Vivienne watched them, her heart full of joy. At midday, the festival games began. Vivienne and Elias joined in friendly contessa, test of strength lifting lightstones, a race through the gardens, and a challenge to solve ancient puzzles carved in crystal. Each time they succeeded or stumbled, they laughed and encouraged one another. The crowd cheered their teamwork and joined in the fun. Vivienne felt the bonds between humans and Aurelians grow stronger with every shared smile. As the sun dipped low, lanterns were lit across the plaza. The soft glow turned the festival into a sea of golden lights. Musicians played gentle tunes on starwood flutes and human string instruments, weaving melodies of unity. Evian and Elias danced together on the marble floor, their steps in harmony. No one watched the difference in their worlds, only two hearts moving as one. When the music ended, Elias led Evian to the fountain at the center of the plaza. He knelt and drew from his pocket a small carved crystal, the model of the wooden starship from their childhood. The crowd fell silent as he offered it to her. "This represents the journey we begin together," he said. Evian's eyes filled with tears of happiness as she accepted the crystal, its facets glowing like promise. They placed the crystal on the fountain's edge, and water sparkled around it like light on glass. The crowd raised their voices in a song of friendship that echoed under the twin moons. Evian and Elias stood side by side, their fingers entwined, hearts full of hope. In that moment, all fear and doubt had melted away. As the festival ended, and the crowd dispersed under the stars, Evian and Elias walked through the quiet gardens. They paused beneath the arch of glowing vines where they had first spoken in childhood. Elias wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "Our story has only just begun," he said softly. Evian rested her head on his shoulder. "Together, we will write its next chapters," she replied. Under the twin moons of Aurelia, the princess and the soldier looked to the future hand in hand. Their worlds had come together through trust, courage, and the simple power of friendship. And as they walked into the night, their hearts beat with the promise of new adventures, united forever by a bond that transcended stars.